welcome, Nadi. This is the Global Digest think tank group. Why don't you introduce briefly about yourself, and also later on you can explain about, Roma. I don't know about Roma. You can explain more about that. Please, Nadi.
Okay, thank you for the invitation. It's my pleasure to share my opinions about the ongoing things. And actually, by approach, I am a generalist, and I'm very much looking, trying to understand the developments from the global perspective, and that's always trying to understand the big picture, what's going on. First, to introduce myself, I'm coming from North Macedonia, which used to be called Macedonia, but working and living in Hungary for more than 10 years. And the concept of Roma might be not familiar for you. I assume you are from...
Right.
So in English, the other term for Roma is gypsy.
I see. I used to have English term gypsy, but not Roma.
Yeah.
Right.
But how we call ourselves Roma. And the origins of Roma are 1,000 years ago. We started to move from Indian, north part of India, between Punjab and Pakistan. We've been taken as slaves and from different conflicts. And we had 3 roads to move to the European continent. The one road was through Afghanistan to Iran and Russia. The other was through Turkey, Greece to Europe, to Balkans. And the third way was through Egypt, Spain to Western Europe. But now Roma are living globally all around the world. So we have huge diaspora in both Americas, North and South America. We have still Roma in Middle East. And in Europe, we are around 12 million population. So globally, we are around 20 million. And somehow the history or the culture of Europe created from us a kind of universal outcast group. And probably are familiar with the qualifications and labels about the gypsies, which is wrong term for us. And we call ourselves Roma, which in our language means a person, man. So, and then the foundation that I was working in Budapest was dealing with this education, supporting, from primary to university education, different, children and students across European continent. So we've been supporting Roma in 16 European countries. So every year we were supporting between 70 to 100,000 children.
In which country the most number of Roma population?
The biggest number of Roma currently is in Turkey.
I see.
Where we have 5 million Roma. Then the next is Romania with 2 million. Then it comes Slovakia, Hungary, Bulgaria, Serbia. But they are now widespread across the European continent. So there is no concentration of Roma in one country. But this is a long story, 1,000 years of, discrimination and racism against Roma. Even during the Second World War, probably you've heard about the Holocaust when we were massively killed by the Nazi regime, together the Jews and the other, non-European nations.
So you've been telling about Roma experience a lot of discrimination and, a lot of abuse and many difficulty around Europe, right? So
yes.
How do you feel? What kind of discrimination and human rights violation Roma people are suffering in which country especially, and where is your experience such kind of problem?
If you look back in the European history, which created kind of universal outcast of Roma, Roma were constantly expelled, killed, tortured, not accepted as a normal citizens. Even they've been slaves in Romania for 500 years. They've been slaves.
I
The
see.
slavery in Romania was abolished at the end of the 19th century. But practically it continued even in the 20th century because one day you're free, you don't know what to do with your life, as many generations previously.
Which means most Roma people they don't have houses and they don't have land or territory.
I mean,
You are I heard mostly moving one place to one place. So how can adjust that kind of culture with the population around the world, which are stable
that
life. They have proper land, proper house, but you are still your own culture moving place to place, right? So it will be a
that's
lot of
one of the
conflict, right? The land
yeah,
conflict.
that's one of the false stereotypes produced for Roma. Roma are not nomadic people, or in our culture, nomadism is not, by generation. We were not allowed to settle. None
Not
of the Europe.
they are not allowed, or Roma people they don't want to be settled down properly.
No, Roma want to settle,
I
but
see.
they are not allowed to settle.
Which
You
country
have
mostly?
you
All
have
Europe?
laws. You have laws, for example, in Europe, in France, in Sweden, in Switzerland, that you cannot stay in one city as being Roma more than 3 months.
Even now?
Even now,
I see.
they don't give you permanent residence or ID of that city, although you were born there, you're holding their passport, but you have to move with your car, with your camp. You have to move. On the contrary, the region where I am born, in the Balkan countries, we are sedentary for centuries because the Ottoman Empire didn't have such kind of racist behavior towards Roma. We could freely speak our language, keep our religion, keep our culture. We had only to pay the taxes to the Ottoman Empire, while Western Europe, including Hungary, had very assimilative policies. Or you don't say that you're Roma publicly, you don't speak publicly Roma language, and if you have children, they are taken by the state, and they are, educated and assimilated that they are not anymore Roma, but they are Hungarians, Germans, France, Swiss. And we have a lot of evidence in Western Europe how racist and discriminatory was towards Roma. Even they were sterilizing our women in Czech Republic, in Slovakia, in Poland. They are sterilizing Roma to not give childbirth.
I see.
This is a long history, and just because we were different color in Europe in medieval times.
It still happens such kind of violation nowadays. It's in the past.
Now the violation is most obvious through the poverty. Many Roma, 90% of Roma are living in ghetto neighborhoods. And once you enter in the ghetto neighborhood, you see there is no proper road, there is no electricity, there is no water, sewage, poverty. The children are sent in special schools for mentally handicapped, children. So these are the usual, approaches that are still prevailing in some European countries.
What about in France or Sweden, or if any Roma people you cannot buy a land or a house there, and you can settle down properly in one place. And
If you don't say that you're Roma, you can buy whatever you want. If you have money and you don't claim that you're Roma, and
I
if
see.
you're lucky to be white, not a black or dark skin, then they will give you everything. And many Roma in Europe now are living in this way. They are hiding their identity, and
I
they are,
see.
you know,
Which means
doing the normal life.
they prohibited mainly your nationality, Roma nationality,
Exactly.
because that name, they are kind of politically, they have some worry or some they concern on that, so they don't want to be bring that your Roma identity to the country, but you can still get land, houses, but you have to be remove your identity, Roma nationality, something like that. That is yeah, the right to ethnic nationality, identity. Is I don't know, in human right law it is not such kind of prohibition. Everybody can have their own identity and their own right, indigenous right, why those democratic country in France and many European countries, they did not allow. I'm not sure. Maybe something else, isn't it? You have any other problem with the political and social issue in those countries? I'm not sure.
In the last 10 years, even more, the right wing on populist parties are, taking the government in most of the European countries. And the Roma issue is very unpopular for these populist governments because they are trying to improve the situation, but not openly. They cannot speak to their voters, oh, we are going now to make the lives of Roma better or to help them. But they are always having the rhetoric against Roma. Even the French president 10 years ago, he was expelling Roma from Romania and Bulgaria, who are member states of the European Union, and their citizens could travel freely. And then the French president Sarkozy made a decision, expel all Roma out of France, and then ordered, made agreement with Bulgaria and Romania to control the train stations and airports in Romania and Bulgaria, just not allow Roma to travel to France. So on one side, you see Europe has the most progressive human rights standards in international. And on the other side, the practice, you see, the politics is totally opposite when it comes for Roma. For no other, groups, this is happening, but for Roma, they easily do it just because we don't have a mother country or a state who will stand behind us. India is still not accepting Roma as their diaspora, because this is even more problematic for India with its own population. And then we are politically not supported and protected, actually, when this kind of situations are happening to us.
So Roma people, Roma group, you request any territory or any, you want to be your own Roma villages, Roma city, something like that in European country? Did you demand or you try to do such kind of your own community building in any European country, or they don't allow such thing?
Roma never had this kind of, idea or ideal to make their own state. But they were just living in all the European countries normally, and they accepted. I mean, we accepted all the religions. We changed our names. Even in some countries, you have a Roma who lost the language. They because through generations they were forbidden to speak their language. So nowadays you have a generation who don't speak their language. But on the other side, in some countries we have a 100% of villages with Roma population. In Slovakia, in Romania, in Bulgaria. But even in that small villages with 100% of population, you don't have a Roma mayor, for example. You have non-Roma mayor, politically elected.
Why?
So,
You cannot be candidate, you cannot participate in politics in those countries.
it's a political manipulation because, you know, to exercise your political rights, you have to be at least economically well situated and educated. And 90% of Roma are poor, unemployed, without education, illiterate, and with poverty, you cannot exercise your political and human rights.
I see. So I'm not sure they have any prohibition for Roma people to make your own political party in any country in Europe. They don't
No.
have prohibition.
No.
You
There is
can
no prohibition.
you can build your own political party, right?
Yeah. Yes, we can.
Then
Now
why
we
not?
have.
Why not you build? Then why you have to candidate for somebody party?
But we have, for example, members of European Parliament. We have every cycle 3, 4 members from Roma communities in the European Parliament. In each country, we have also members of the parliament, ministers, of directors. But the issue is that our votes are not concentrated to make a big difference. They are very dispersed across the European country. And, you know, like if you concentrate all Roma in Europe in one place, you have 12 million population. And then you have states which have less than this 12 million, like, take example, Liechtenstein, which is less than 1 million, country of 1 million. Or take Serbia, for example, or Hungary. Yeah, these are 8 million and 10 million populations. But the concentration is not in one place. We are all across the European continent. And then at the pools, because of the poverty, not all Roma are going to vote. They are not interested, or they don't trust the system, the political system, that their votes will change something for them. So there are many factors why we still cannot.
But they have voting right? They can.
Yeah.
So that's mean the poor participation for Roma people. You know, you have to organize your own people to vote and to participate in politics. Then only you can raise your own rights. Nobody will raise for your right unless you speak out. You know, if you ask European country, because you are scattered around Europe, every Europe country already know your community. They don't want to touch, you know, they don't want to talk about your issue. Even they are knowingly, they, you know, refrain to talk about Roma issue among European country. If only one country, two country, other country can still able to speak, but every European country, they have same experience. So that is very difficult for Roma people to raise your voice unless you organize, because you have the right to vote, you have the right to build your own political party. At least you have such kind of right, you know. The thing is, you need to motivate and you need to organize your community, and then you can build up your right. You can demand your right one by one after you have a strong number and strong power. You know, millions are a lot. You know, you can do many things with
I agree.
your
I agree. And
your
we
community.
started this emancipation, approach from 70s. The first generation of Roma leaders started this kind of movement and politically organizing. But it's a long road because we are dealing with 90% of poor people.
If I see Roma community as you explain, you have a lot of poverty, poor education, you know, economically weak. So these are the main issue, I guess. But at least you have a right to vote. You have the right to make your own political party, you know, at least those things. But as you mentioned as earlier, they not allow you to stay in one city for more than 3 months. That is a little bit a concern in terms of human right, you know. As
Yeah.
but by the way, you most Roma people have passport and citizen ID card in each country, or they don't have such passport or ID card.
In most countries, they have passport and ID.
So
Very small number.
they are citizen of where they are living, where they get
Yeah.
ID card and passport.
Yeah.
I see.
There is small percentage of Roma who do not have ID documents and personal documentation, and this is moving for many decades, and
Right.
because of the very strict regulations, that it's not easy to get birth certificate, and usually in poor families, the Roma children are born not in hospital but at home, and then there is no proper evidence when you are born and who are your parents. And if one of your parents do not have a personal document, then also the children cannot get it, and this is
Yes, but
multiplying from year to
as
year.
you said, they confiscated your identity of a Roma indigenous. They confiscated your identity of Roma indigenous in most country, or it's some European country allow you to use Roma identity, or
for
most
example,
of them.
I have a friends in Italy who have a lot of money, but just because they are Roma, they cannot buy property, apartments or houses, because people don't want to deal with them.
I see.
Even their money is not interesting.
And they officially, they don't allow you to use the name of Roma, and they don't allow you to use a Roma culture, Roma language.
No, they call us gypsies,
I see. But
they don't call us Roma. If we say to them Roma, they will, as you don't have idea who are these people. But if you say that you are gypsy, or in Italian Zingaro, that they will not sell you any kind of property.
I mean, in government official, any official written document, they mention gypsy or they mention Roma?
UK, for example, has this kind of very strange formulation. In UK, they say there are Roma, gypsies, and travelers.
Oh, each place they mention different terminology.
Yeah, in UK, they mix this.
They use gypsies, all of terminology, gypsy, Roma, traveler.
Yeah, but travelers are not Roma or gypsies, because we know they are domestic English or UK citizens who are nomadic, and by ethnic origin they are not Roma or they are not gypsy, but just because of their living culture, they are put in the same box as Roma and gypsies. And for us,
Yeah.
we say we are only Roma. We don't say we are gypsies. But gypsies, mistaken term coming from the medieval time, because in Greece, when the first Roma arrived, they called them Atzinganoi, which means something untouchable in Greek language. And then this term entered European, and then we have gypsies, zigeuners, zingari in Italian, or gitan in French. So every European language is having this pejorative name for us. And our
I'm
universal
not
name
sure
is Roma.
all Roma from a different country in Europe, they use same Roma, or some people still using Gypsy for themselves, because I don't know about all your community
Now,
background,
all European
because
countries,
if some people are willing to use Gypsy among your group, that may be a concern by other people. That's why they can call Gypsy. But if
let me,
all of your group, if you oppose the name, you can officially make statement, and you can also officially press release. You can officially send a letter to all the government in Europe. We want just Roma. Don't call me Gypsy, or don't call me any other name. If you have clearly statement, it might be changed, I think, official process. But
I mean, that,
I'm not sure you did not done those things, or some of your group members are still willing to accept Gypsy, or some are not accept Gypsy. It might be confusing, that you should make clear statement.
it is confusing because, currently, European Commission, Council of Europe, World Bank, all international, organizations are using the term Roma. And every European country now has a Roma strategy for integration of Roma, because this is directive of the European Union and European Commission that each country has 10 years strategy how to ensure social inclusion of Roma in their societies. And there are strategies. But then you have right-wing political parties who are campaigning against Roma just to collect the votes of the voters, raising the anti-Roma sentiment and promising to their voters that they will clean the society from gypsies. On the other side, you have a Roma groups who are proud to be called gypsies. In UK, for example.
In which places?
In UK, they don't have problem with the gypsy term. In Spain,
That is the issue, because among some of your people accepting Gypsy, even some, they might say, I am original Gypsy, I don't want Roma. Then that is difficult to organize for the whole population.
In Spain, they want to be called gitanos, which in Spanish language means gypsy. Or in Germany, there are Sinti group of Roma, and Sinti is the tribal name of the group, because we have tribes among Roma groups. Roma is universal umbrella term, but then within the Roma group, we have different tribes, like Sinti, Manouche, many other names. Do not confuse you now. And they prefer to be called by the tribal name, not by the umbrella name. Because when we approach each other in our language, and I'm asking each of ourselves, are you Roma? Yes, I am Roma, in Romani language. But then when we are asking which tribe you are, the second question, and then comes the difference. The tribal name of Sinti, Manouche, Caldarash, Boyar, there are many tribes. And for some groups, the tribal name is more important than the common name for all the Roma.
Yeah,
But
I have experienced such kind of ethnic issue. Same in Burma, Myanmar, we have multiple ethnicity. There are many overlapping and contradiction among ethnicity. That's why uh, I know some ethnic problem. So by the way, I think your desire, willingness, and a good thing is I respect that. And I mean, we cannot stop them, or we cannot prohibit anyone what they want to call themselves. That
Yes.
that is one thing. Once your group say one voice, one name, that maybe people can be more concerned and respect your statement. And the thing is, uh, let them express their own, their own right, their own position. If a majority want to call Roma, those who willing to use the term Roma, you should identify, and those who don't want to use Roma, or those who still want to use Gypsy, let them use whatever their willing name. That is their own choice. That is one of ethnic's complicated, complex issue. The name terminology. You're among them. You have to figure out. But I'm worried about they don't allow you to keep your culture or your language in your community. In French or in other European country, they don't allow you officially to use your language and your culture activity in those places. Why they only let you stay 3 months, not permanent resident? Why? Is there any reason?
That's the politics from the past. I mean, you can use your language, you can speak your language freely now,
I see.
but then you're not allowed to stay. I mean, you have many French, born generations who are still have to move.
Really,
from
that
city.
that is government official.
And the local institutions, the mayor give you permission to stay, and they have at the end of the city special area where you can bring your cars and cans. You connect to the electricity, to the water. You stay there 3 months. After 3 months, you have to move to the next city. If not, the police will come and will expel you.
I see. But it means that is special location and the special opportunity for Roma people to gather and to live there for 3 months. I don't know well, so I cannot figure out. But if individual of your group member, if he want to stay in that city or other city, he have a house, he have a land. If he can buy houses and land, they still not allow them to stay there. The authority not allow you to stay there.
For example, I have a Roma relatives who moved from Balkan countries to European countries and in France. And they bought house, they bought property, land, but they didn't claim that they are Roma. For French institutions, they show the Balkan countries, documentation. And you're citizen of Serbia or Macedonia or Bosnia, so then you are allowed to buy. But if you say or they realize that you're Roma, then they will not give you to buy.
That is a official government position. They prohibit that for Roma to buy houses and land.
Yeah, and this is for French Roma. And they cannot identify non-French Roma because as they are coming from many other countries, with in my passport that doesn't write that I'm Roma. I'm
I see.
Macedonian citizen.
I
So
see.
they
It
cannot
means
identify.
other country Roma, no problem. You can buy house and land in the French. But if French Roma want to buy houses and land, it's
Yeah.
not possible. Something
Yeah.
like that, right?
Yeah,
I
and
see.
in Italy also. In Italy also.
I see. It means
For
case by
Italian
case.
Roma, for Italian Roma, they have special, places where they are allowed to stay. But they cannot build property, just a land. They give them land, is isolated, and you can stay there how much you want in Italy.
I see. It is case by case, right? So
Yeah, each country has developed its own, policies and culture, how to control the, let's say, migration of Roma.
yes, we need to know more about Roma because many people don't know about, no idea about Roma people. So uh, maybe you have to explain more and advocate more around the world so people can understand and they can know you more about Roma. And the other thing is, as you said, your kids were a kind of kidnapping, right? They took from Roma people and they train them, the kids, to other place, and they not let them teach your Roma culture and Roma language, something like that.
Yes, yes, yes. Because we are losing slowly the Roma language with the current generations. And imagine, for 1,000 years, the Roma language was transferred from generation to generation only in oral. We didn't have written Roma language. We don't have Roma literature or grammar till the 1970s when the first, leaders and movements started to promote the Roma emancipation. And now we have two standards, grammar standards in Roma language, but then the governments are not accepting this because if they accept the Roma language standards and the grammar, they have to finance it and give us schools in Romani language. And now Roma children are attending schools in all European languages. We speak all European languages, starting from Finland to Greece to Turkey to Spain and Portugal. Our children are going to schools in all mainstream education languages, but not in our own mother language. And this is one of the also big discriminatory indicators that we don't have right to go to school in our own language.
How many Roma population, how many percent they can speak Roma language? I don't think
Actually,
everybody can speak right now.
no, because uh, partly this depends from the assimilative policies in the past. For example, 80% of Hungarian Roma don't speak Romanes, Romani language, because it was forbidden in the time of Maria Theresa. Or in Switzerland, or in Germany, when they even didn't have the right to vote. Switzerland was the last country who was taking the children till the 80s, 1980s. They were taking by force the children and not allowing Roma women to vote.
It's
And
kidnapping, child kidnapping.
yeah, yeah.
I see. As you said, majority Roma people cannot speak anymore Roma.
In the
And
Western Europe, yes. In the Balkans, yes, we still have, but it's losing.
I see. And you don't have any Roma school or college, university, they don't allow you, or
No, it's not that they don't allow, but we don't have sufficient, critical mass of intellectuals and financial means to establish such kind of, educational schools and universities.
because you have million of Roma population around Europe,
Yeah.
So at least you can have school or college if you are willing to develop it. I think it is possible, but I'm very doubt your fellow Roma people how much they have the will to develop such kind of uh, Roma school and college. It might be contrary with the each country, language and culture. Maybe you can learn both. You can learn Roma language as well as you can learn European language, each country language. In that way, you can do, but it's depend on your community desire.
Look, legally there are no barriers to make it, but there are financial and political barriers to make your own education school or structure. And as you know, the education is state-controlled system. So you have to comply with the national or governmental, laws that if you even establish language school in Romani language, you have to have the curricula of the state, verified and approved by the state. For example, in my country, in Macedonia, all other ethnic groups are having primary and secondary schools in their own language, in Turkish, in Albanian, in Serbian. But then Roma do not have it.
Why? You don't have school because your community are not preparing?
First, I said, we don't have critical mass of intellectuals, that teachers, professors that are willing to we have teachers, but their number is small and they are lecturing in a mainstream language, not in Roma language. And then it's a financial means. We tried to establish some kind of classes in primary schools, but then immediately we have this kind of qualification that we are ghettoizing or segregating Roma children from the mainstream.
I see. And I guess I'm not sure Roma people are living in get together or they are scattering in many places. It might be difficult to organize anything for school or college or anything if you don't live in same place, same city, something like that. You cannot bring them all people from very far away. So I'm not sure how your Roma people
Yeah, there are many problems that
live
schools
together.
are very far from the Roma communities, from the Roma settlements, and even segregated schools are only for these poor family children with poor quality of education standards. Sometimes even Roma parents do not allow their children to go to school, but rather use them to make some income for the family. But there are multiple, factors and reasons why we are facing this kind of issues in our education.
I see. That's right. Because nowadays you have a lot of freedom, you have a lot of chance, and you have a lot of rights to do. But that's depend on your own, to do whatever your desire. That's depend on your Roma people. And can you identify where is Roma city, the most Roma people live together? The majority of population city.
I mean, the biggest concentration of Roma are in Turkey, in Istanbul, but also in Izmir.
I mean, that city, the half population are Roma or more than half population?
No.
Where is?
I'm speaking about the numbers. Like in Izmir, we have 300,000 Roma in one city. But then Izmir, as a city, is big, 3-4 million population.
You have your own city in anywhere?
No.
So you are never majority of any city?
We have municipalities, but these are not cities. I mean, municipality, for example, in my country, Macedonia, we have municipality of Shuto Rizare, which is regularly having mayor Roma, local council of Roma, and 80% of the population are Roma, and
Yeah.
20% are the other groups. But then even in that municipality, the poverty is so obvious and the educational performances are also very weak.
So
This
this
kind of,
is the only Roma administration, the
yeah,
municipal council. I see. I mean, you are too much scattering. That's the thing, you know,
yeah,
and you cannot do many things easily if you are too scattered.
yeah. In democracy, numbers are important.
Of course, I mean, you have number, but you are not together in one
Yeah,
place or one country or one city or one state. You are scattered, so you cannot get such kind of, you know, school or college or some kind of those things. Maybe you should develop other way. Maybe you can do, you know, like that distant education program, online education that can be more practical for Roma people, because your nature is scattering, you know, you are not together, you are nature, that is your nature, you know, it's scattering. So you have to
yeah. But
use
even
different style, different technique, you know, to develop
but even
education.
in a regular school, when Roma children are attending in a mainstream language, for example, primary or
Definitely,
secondary,
definitely.
even that they are not fairly treated and given scores for their knowledge, because just because they are Roma, they always have lower marks in the school than the mainstream children. And we have so many examples, like Roma children will fulfill the test and will have 2 or 3. And for Macedonian or mainstream, many other mainstream children, they will give them week 5, week 5, but it's 5 as a score. And for Roma, they say strong 2 or strong 3. And intentionally, the teachers are keeping you, unfairly treated. And they don't recognize the potentials and talents of Roma children.
Maybe you should think the other way, like globalization or other system. I'm not sure it will be helpful for Roma indigenous people, but nowadays in this world, globalization is happening, you know, around the world. So I'm not sure. It might not be helpful for developing indigenous. And by the way, is Roma people also in Ukraine and Russia?
Yeah, there
So
are, and they have a huge numbers of. But in both countries, Roma are not also treated properly. I mean, they are very much discriminated by Russians and by Ukrainians. Even in Ukraine, the fascist groups were attacking Roma neighborhoods
I
because
see.
they had this kind of parallel military, groups in Ukraine after the democratic changes there, and then they were entering the Roma neighborhoods and fighting with Roma families, women, children, older. We had so many cases. But even in Russia, this was happening.
I see. So there's no better position for Roma community in anywhere in Europe, right? So
I mean, we can compare the political, but also the legal norms in each country. We can still say, because most important are the economic opportunities. And then if you have economic, stable income, then you are regulating the other rights. And this is happening in Western Europe. If you don't claim that you're Gypsy or Roma, then your life goes normally. But then this is worse in Central and Eastern Europe.
So what is your organization planning in the future?
I mean, the first priority is education.
But
We are,
you still don't have any school or any college. But
no,
maybe you can use distance education or, online education.
The current approach is that together the donors, which are, European classic donors, bilateral and multilateral agencies, they don't want to make Roma education segregated from the mainstream, which
I
means
don't
that
think so.
we are sending our children to mainstream schools to have good degrees in all professions. And the idea is that they enter the system, economic, political, institutional, and push the integration and interest of Roma.
Yes. But
We don't want to build parallel system or
right.
parallel institutions, but rather to use the mainstream institutions as an integration approach.
I mean, with assistance is not much helpful for Roma society, but you have sufficient number of population, million of Roma people with your own community, with your own fund, you need to organize and you can develop education and all this organization activity. That will be more effective because people will hesitate to provide assistance fund for your activity because they see that is something else is not for our, not any benefit for us. They will think that is only for Roma people, their own benefit, their own desire. They feel like this. So you can do yourself much more than other assistance, I guess, because you have population, and you live in Europe. Everybody can make a lot of money if you can make a good business, a good activity. You can do many things, I think. Don't much rely on fund, NGO fund or any grant, government aid. Usually is not much helpful for practical things.
Yeah, I agree very much with that. But currently, most of the funds are coming from donors. As a community, we are still not able, or we are not sufficiently mature to generate our own, funds and solidarity for the next generation of children. And that's a process that, I mean, we are just 50 years in kind of mobilizing and self-organizing our emancipation rights, and probably it will take us a couple of more generations to reach at some point.
Thank you, Mr. Nadi. It was a pleasure to talk with you.